Georgia and between Turkish-Russian Cooperative Rivalry.
Okay. Should I go there? Okay.
The floor is yours.
Okay. Can I ask please to turn on my presentation? I will be short because I know that we all are extremely tired, and me too.
You have 2 minutes actually.
Yeah, I have I think I will it will last 5 minutes. Can I ask please to turn off my, Can you enlarge it because I don't see myself and no one sees? Thank you. So, I will not go into the depth of my methodology theory. I will be more practical. And as usual, we say the last man, not the least. I would try to be more case precise. I will be speaking about about the challenge that Georgia is having nowadays, and this is challenge of Turkey and Russia. Can you turn the first, please, slide, second one? Yes, so what's in the wake of Erdogan's ruling, more and more people in the West especially are afraid that Turkey can go to have a bigger distance from the West, from NATO, and there were even talks whether the Turkey can be trusted in the wake of this increase of, how they call it, neo-Ottoman or Turkish policy. Unfortunately, nowadays, Georgian political elites are unable to see that these changes already happened. Turkey has been considered as Georgia's strategic ally for years and years since the collapse of the Soviet Union. And it's now being sacred in Georgia. You cannot simply criticize Turkey. If you criticize Turkey, you criticize NATO. If you criticize NATO, it means that you are pro-Russian. It means that you are done, probably. That is how it works in Georgia, unfortunately. So in Georgia, we have a black and white world. On the one hand, we have the developed, civilized system called the Western family, which we would like to rejoin, not even join, but rejoin, because in Georgia people argue that Georgia is the oldest European country. I'm not sure whether we can make such statements. I think this is the issue of other research, not mine, because I'm not a historian. But in scope of this framework, there is the second part of the world where actually Armenia is nowadays, which is not the Western world, and for Georgia it means that you are pro-Russian. So the Georgian political system splits everyone on two parts, like pro-Russian and pro-Western. And criticizing NATO, Turkey means criticizing NATO, as I said, and it means that you are pro-Russian. So you simply cannot criticize Turkey in any way. And during the Nagorno-Karabakh war, everyone was silent about the Turkish role because of being afraid of called pro-Russian. And this is not the problem with political elites. This is generally the problem with everything in Georgia, because as I always argue, Georgia is a small country, and as a small country, its academia is also extremely politically and ideologically motivated, especially when it comes to political science. And unfortunately, but since the collapse of the Soviet Union, Georgia's academic life is still not independent from politics. On the other side, we have Russia. Russia, which is primordial enemy of Georgia. And when Georgian academicians in Latvia, Litva, Estonia, Poland, America speak, they usually speak about 200, 300 years of occupation, even though they don't look into the term of occupation and whether they can use this term occupation. And those for Georgia, NATO is the only way to be integrated to the Western world. So far, when the Erdogan-Putin bromance, if we can call it, what I call cooperative rivalry, and this is actually cooperative rivalry. On the one hand, we have cooperation, on the other hand, we have rivalry, puts Georgia to the difficult situation. Can we trust modern Turkey or we can't? And if we can't trust Turkey, if Turkey is distancing itself from the West, then what is the way Georgia can attach itself to the Europe? That's why Georgian political academic elites are very keen to speak about readiness to want to go to Ukraine. In 2018, they were even speaking about the Armenian case, to go to Armenia and help build new Armenia, pro-Western Armenia, Armenia that will distance itself from Russia and go to America, go to the West. But as soon as they realize that Gyumri military base will never go anywhere, they stop these talks because Armenia stayed in the so-called pro-Russian bloc. So what we see nowadays is a rivalry between cooperation and the rivalry between Turkey and Russia. On the one hand, both countries are interested in keeping this region under their control. So for the first time for centuries we see Turkey coming to the region thanks to the Nagorno-Karabakh war. On the other hand, we see military bases in Sikharulidze region of what we call occupied territory of Sikharulidze region of Abkhazia. But on the other hand, we have rivalry because both Turkey and Russia, they don't want to see each other dominating the region. And Georgia is simply just oppressed between these two countries, hoping that the West can change anything. Can you go to the next slide, please? Should I push the button? Okay. Yeah. So, what I would like to say here, and you can just read if you don't want to listen anymore. So Georgia's aspiration to become a member of the Western institutions, as I said, to rejoin European family, that's important, meaning that Georgia is the third European country, as a Christian country, as Armenia is the first actually, not Georgia, and still, especially NATO, go through Ankara, Turkey, and this is a serious problem for Georgia. Erdogan is a serious problem for Georgia that they don't want to rise simply. And it's unfortunate that even in academia, people are afraid of speaking about that because the ambassador of Turkey will say that this is Turkophobia, criticizing the Turkey in general by all means. It doesn't matter if they criticize anything else, is Turkophobia. So, despite having strong Turkophobic attitudes among Georgian population, especially it goes to Ajara region. You probably know that thanks to the Kars contract, the Ajara and Batumi went back to Georgia, and the people there have a historic memory and they're afraid of Turkey. They're extremely afraid of Turkey. And what the ambassador calls Turkophobic attitudes are very, very strong there. So it perceives Turkey as a strategic ally, but still does not consider it as a part of the Western civilization. So it's very interesting that despite knowing that Turkey is the only way to the NATO, Georgian people and even the elite do not consider Turkey as a part of the Western civilization. This is just a road. And there was a really nice survey during when Turkey shut down struck down the Russian military aircraft. There was a survey asking who will you support if we're going to have war tomorrow, and absolute majority was for Russia, not for Turkey. Because even though Russia is enemy, Russia is still the part of the Western civilization. For Georgia is much more than the Turkey itself. Can we go to the next slide, please? Oh, I will myself. And yes. So Georgia is not going to join 3+3 format because they say if there is a Russia, we are not going to join it. And we have a question. Then what we are doing in OSCE? In UN, I know, yes, thank you, I have 55 seconds. I'm not gonna break my deadline. But nowadays they realize that we cannot just step aside from 3+3 format. And plus, if we are smart enough, we can use 3+3 format as a platform for the West to help control Turkey and to protect our interests. And I will make a small non-paid advertisement of my article that was published at MGIMO by International Analytics that is called Georgia Beyond Radical Europeanist and Discovered Direction of Foreign Policy that discusses this topic. There is a really nice article called by Corneli Kakachia where he considers the term of Europeanist. And this is my response to as a radical Europeanist. Thank you, it's 10 minutes, I'm done.
Next, Mr. Jason Strauss.